Hello and welcome, Patreon friends, to the after show of probably one of the weirdest shows that I've ever been part of.
Who knew sages were so good at investigating?
Oh, good is certainly one word. So this is probably the most. This actually reminds me a lot of my very first D&D group, where by the end of it, we fucking hated each other. And we only stuck together because that was the only way that we were going to take out the Pershanis family. Because it was like, look, they did all of this other stuff. We got to take them out. And then I'm never speaking to you again. That kind of feels like where this might be going.
Well, I mean, like, definitely in early stages, we're all like, we're there for our individual purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, when someone gets in the way of that, like someone I've known for a week gets in the way of that. Oh, they're fucking dead. I don't know them yet.
There hasn't really been anything to bond us. Because even our adventure in the mansion, most of that happened in separate little groups. Mm-hmm. So there wasn't really that much that we even did together. So it kind of makes sense. As for hilarity.
although I think like the downtime, Dewey and Wuya would have, at least spent some, even if it was silent time copying files.
So why did you cast sleep on him?
Because they spent a week silently copying spells next to each other and harbored resentment the entire time, apparently.
I just wanted to ask the question and get this adventure on with.
Just like for me as a player and as like an actor in a way, just like that week doesn't register in my brain as like past time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like as a person, I'm like, oh yeah, I have these memories of like interacting with Dewey and stuff. It's like that week, it's like, oh yeah, we sit together copying spell books. To me, it's like, oh yeah, we copy spell books. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Not like the deep personal bond I have with Gordo.
So you did like a fantastic Rise Darby, like Murray from Flight of the Conchords. I actually wanted Donovan to have that accent, but I couldn't pull it off. So
it floats, man. You gotta have.
Why my name is Donovan Chambers. That.
Oh, the one's so good and awful all at once.
It's weird because it's nasal, but it's also got long vowels. That's the hard part of it.
It's the hard part of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I will say that I am interested to see now that this throwdown has occurred and everybody's kind of seen how everybody else handled that. I'm interested to see what happens now as our individual motivations start to be impossible to hide, because I think that's actually potentially, if my theories are correct, might actually bring us closer together rather than separating us. It's just gonna be a matter of like who caves first on being like, okay, here's what's actually up. Here's what I'm doing.
So none of us saw the sleep fight though.
Nope.
Gordo.
No, yeah.
Just poor Gordo. Maybe he'll tell me about it. It was a sleep storm.
Technically, only Iris saw all of it.
So the way that the Avowed thing works as far as people coming and going, generally there are Avowed who are working in the library, and then those who come to them with requests.
Mm-hmm.
So very rarely, I mean they do, but not terribly often do they cross each other's thresholds.
My next off time, I'll meet some of those guys.
There you go. And Gordo may well have lied about it to make himself sound more important. I'm one of the ones that can cross right over. I can't do the accent at all. I'm not even going to try. That's why I was like, on him.
Put some flyers for Club Scepter right outside the Emerald doors.
I'm going to point one thing out, though. There is now a great reader who knows about Club Scepter.
Yes.
Just pointing that out because there had been like a hush hush, keep it under the radar type of thing going on.
It didn't seem like that much of a secret.
It was one of those like open secrets that the great readers, probably don't know about because they don't care enough.
I mean, are we really worried about her? I'm not worried about
Depend-
her.
make a performance check, Sebastian.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
As I have gone on record saying, when things are consensual and not for not for the purpose of gathering information, I truly loathe performance checks.
It's when you reduce a hostile creature to 0 hit points.
Aha!
So it might work on Dewey or Wuya.
How much are you gonna piss these kids off?
Well,
what
so
if I'm hostile towards them?
I do have a question, because one of my abilities as a necromancer, when you kill something with a spell, you heal that amount based on the level times 2. So did Rusty die by sleep, or did Rusty die by pulling
Rusty
down the
died
stairs?
by the fall.
If it's a familiar, does it count as a death, or is it just a
Oh, it's a
disapparition?
Yeah.
Any creature.
Okay.
But they don't die. They just go back to the
Right, and also
Sure.
is a familiar
Plane.
technically a creature?
The para-elemental closeted familiars.
Like, I mean, for example, you probably wouldn't get that killing an animal that comes out of a bag of tricks.
Yeah. And this is me asking because I
Even if
truly
it's
don't
Norman.
remember. I've never played. The only wizard that I've played of a high level does not have a familiar, so it's not a thing.
Yeah.
There was a guy who did an
it's
awesome.
Fae.
He did an awesome story about an animal in a bag. Like his hypothesis was that bag of tricks, you're reaching in and pulling an animal out of its habitat and it's appearing. And so he did this story from like a duck's perspective. It's like just waddling along, and all of a sudden this hand comes out of nowhere and just grabs you and pulls you somewhere.
In Chaos Agents, the animals were essentially in Married with Children.
Mm-hmm.
So they were like on a sitcom set that they kept getting pulled then out of.
So I think Untitled Goose Game was just a goose that kept getting pulled in.
100%.
And now he's pissed.
Yeah,
That's
he's just seeking
awesome.
revenge on everybody who ever pulled him out of their
Yeah.
bag of tricks.
That is awesome. That was the most party conflict I've seen in a while. That was awesome.
So for some reason, my feat of Shadow Touched, or whatever it is, gives me it's a first level inflict wound spell.
Yep.
But it does 3d10.
Yeah, that is what inflict wounds does.
Oh wow, okay.
As
There's
a cleric spell, that is what inflict wounds does.
There's a reason why Elspeth was willing to take the hit on trying to go see Kadroth alone and inflict wounds on him, is because she felt like it might actually do enough damage for her to get him in 2 shots.
Yeah. Inflict wounds there. I think it's the series A Crap Guide to D&D talks about clerics and how at first level you have access to several very powerful spells, and inflict wounds is one of them.
Do they still do the thing where good clerics can't take inflict wounds?
No.
No.
Nope. Now you have access to all of the cleric spells and then your domain spells.
Yep.
Where they are different. I will say this is the most that I've ever seen sleep used in anything, and I've played a Twilight Cleric a couple of times where that is a domain spell.
Yeah,
that's funny.
We had a good game. Nick and the person playing the bard would dual sleep. So that if it's like sleep and then be like, and then we just go around killing everybody.
Yeah, just slit throats.
Just stab everybody. Yeah,
nice and easy.
I mean, it's effective.
Oh my god!
Because then it's a coup de grace. Just remember that also works against you.
If we can just get along with each other, we can take out anyone.
That is big if, is it not?
We have to be careful how far away we cast those sleep spells. That is
be very aware of how far 20 feet is.
Now, if I had those 6 extra hit points.
Oh goodness.
Good golly. Don't you have the most default hit points of anyone in the campaign anyway? It's either you or me.
You do.
How many hit points do you have?
No, it's Lester. Lester has 1 more hit point than Sabachthani, but Sabachthani has 1 point higher charisma than Lester.
I have 14.
A trade-off.
She does not remind me of that daily.
This is the first time it's come up.
But yeah, if you want to do a wizard duel, I'll fuck you up.
So
I don't have any combat spells, so that's probably
don't.
I'd spend like 60 feet away and be just like Emperor Palpatine and just do.
Dude, I gave you access to Witch Bolt and you chose not to take it.
So GMing question, how are you, normally one of a big struggle for GMs is dealing with a party that splits up. We don't split up, we fracture.
Yeah.
And so are you, are you sort of, it took me a while to get that kind of camera time clock in my head that says, haven't heard from this person in a while and that sort of thing. And so how are you kind of managing that?
Mostly it's I've been playing enough of these games where we do split up quite a lot. My immediate thought is the redacted reports where we always split off. And so I've started to gain a sense for how long something should be on someone. And sometimes it's much more of an art than a science. It is very definitely, okay, you have said everything that you need to say in this scene, and now you're just sort of running around in circles, and let's go see what other people are up to. So I've developed that clock to a certain extent, but more from the player side. And I also try to watch your guys' faces, which is actually easier in the Hollywood squares because I can just look at a screen and see who's looking really fucking bored. And that's usually a pretty good indicator for me of, they're starting to check out a little bit, which is perfectly natural and human.
Well, and I will say that was a thing that I took advantage of on this particular episode. Like when the fight in the hearth started going down, everyone was ganging up on Wuya. Like a minute and a half into that, I messaged Tiana and I was like, can I just go off and do another thing? And I know that's a little shitty. I was aware even at the time and I was willing to take the no on that. But it was also like, if I can give her a sense of what I'm doing that she can weave into the background so that I'm not another voice on top of this fracas, but I can still be active, then she can come back around to that whenever it's available or whenever it's useful.
And that is something that I really do like about being on Zoom is being able to private chat with
few options.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that moment, Tiana, where you said, do you look over there or do you gesture over there?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I was trying to draw attention over there and maybe end that conversation a little bit sooner, but there was some interesting stuff that came out of that.
In the old days, Alundra, we just threw notes.
If we were in person, that would be an option.
It's much more noticeable that way.
I will say, even in person, Thomas has like Facebook messaged me because he knows I keep my phone next to me. And I also have my computer next to me. So he has Facebook messaged me to be like, I'm doing X, Y, and Z.
But that only was with Thomas because we know Thomas is always fiddling with the stream or setting up a contest. And so it's easier for him to cover that than us when we're in studio.
I mean, that's the thing too, though, is that's the thing that I've played with groups that have set that up intentionally. TGN, we all have our laptops up. So I've just whispered the DM before or sent them a message and we've had full conversations about like what's actually happening on the side. And it's not always the best. You kind of have to play like, when is that appropriate versus when does it not work? But I do think it can be a valuable tool when you have an instance like this, where it's like everybody's moving at once. If you're not going to roll initiative and go around the room to ask everybody what they're doing, this provides a really excellent option for the people who are involved in the immediate action to still be taking action in the side.
And maybe that, I'm sorry, Ezra, go ahead.
No, please.
Well, maybe that would have been a better way for me to have handled it, looking at it for the future, is being like, okay, who is actively engaged in this? Go around the table and do one action. And then the people who are not, are you doing something? And maybe that would have been a better way to handle it.
I think this session really made it clear that there's still a struggle this early in the game between, I think we all want to move the story along because we all know that we are doing this for an audience.
Sure.
We all, because I think we're respectful of each other, want to give each other the opportunity to do what our characters want to do, but it's so early that I don't know what your characters want to do. So all I can do is like act an instinct on how my character would do. So like Odila stopping Wuya, that was just based on past information, and it was helpful having this conversation with the side conversation with Wuya, because I think it gave me as a player a better understanding of what James wanted to do, because I don't think I knew that before having that conversation. And it took a little longer of a conversation to get that information, and the longer we play, I think the more it will become clear what we can tell what the other players want to do and be there to support that. But until we know that, I think we mentioned this, it's like all we can do is work off of instinct of what our character would do, and it might block.
See, I like it. I actually like systems that make that explicit, where like characters have a stated, whether it's an ambition, like Warhammer calls it ambition or something like that. And this is something that everyone knows I want to do. Maybe it's get rich, maybe, whatever it is. And whenever I do things that further that ambition or acting that ambition, I get a little bonus, but it also tells the other players that are playing, this is what I want. And so it broadcasts that, because to your point, Laura, otherwise we're just sort of like, I wonder, I don't know what the hell Wuya wants. He wants to go talk to people, so I'll just let him do that, so I think maybe, and it metagaming or whatever it is, but I think there's something to be said for that, where we just sort of amongst the group at least have some explicit, like, here's what I want.
I think story-wise and character-wise, having those secrets essentially, is good to keep that hidden, just for spoilers and that kind of stuff. So Dewey doesn't have a bunch because he wants to find his parents. It's kind of it. He's lucky enough to stay there, so that's not gonna, as long as he has his hole. Or
I think it's important to keep that secret from the audience, but the question is, would have been more beneficial for us to tell each other? Maybe that happens in a private. I don't. I will say for Icefire Peak, we all kept our backstories hidden from each other, and that worked well. Because I think when we had those moments of revealing, it was genuine shock, like sometimes, and so that was helpful. But I feel like in Icefire we also like bonded a lot quicker as characters. This session, or this group, and maybe it's just the module, maybe it's just the types of characters we created are just like a lot more loners. Yeah, they're all very much loners and much more suspicious of each other.
Well, and I think the other problem is we have a team of face characters, or people that want to be face characters. Like I made a useless face character, but it's still a face, and so like we have, for lack of a better word, a lot of hams, and that, as both a GM and as other players, that's something that we have to manage and we have to like always be aware of.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's like, I'm also trying to gauge, it's like, how many of us are those initiators? How many of us are those ones who like chill back and relax? And it is that balancing act because as a player, I have not played with any of you as a player. So
like Gloomhaven.
It's different.
No, it's
I had a deeply involved character, damn it.
Yeah, that you traded off instantly the moment you got to. But yeah, it's just like all of that, and I don't, as a player and as a person, I fucking love secrets, because as Laura mentioned, it's just like, when those things drop, it's not just a surprise for you, it's a surprise for the audience, but it's a surprise for your party. And as an actor, I like having those moments of just like, oh shit, and then you like have to come back into it as like, what would my character be thinking of in this moment? And then to also like hop on like the bonding aspect, as a player, I don't get a sense of an overarching goal yet. Right now, all it is like, it is like the starting quests in a RPG where you're just like, go find this book, kill 20 of those things, go and do that. And not to say any criticism to you, Tiana, or the module itself, but
that's the problem though, is that this module is not. This module isn't a module. This is a collection of adventures that are meant to be dropped into your adventure as you go. That is the weakness of Candlekeep, is that there is no
Yeah.
overarching story. The beginning of each adventure, each module, it says, you know, your players might find this book because they're looking for X, Y, and Z.
But
So-
I agree with James. There was not much motivation for at least half of us. I mean, you know, it was easy to agree to be part of this investigation group because we got a room and there was no
We wanna
contract we had to
stay
sign,
here.
so we can back out. But most of us just got here, so we don't even have like the motivation of getting to extend our stay because it's not like we've run out of time yet.
You
And
only get
Dewey's here forever. So Wuya's actually the only one who actually has a big motivation to take on things in order to extend his stay. I think for the rest of us, it's like, yeah, sure, why not? But like, it'll be interesting the moment that this becomes a huge inconvenience. Like, what is going to be the motivation for them to keep doing this? And like you said, it's really just a limitation of the module.
I mean, that
Yeah.
is the obviously the conceit of taking 17 disparate modules and making one story out of it.
Yeah.
I think that's where all of the backstory and character stuff that is done, that's where that overarching story comes through.
Yeah.
It's gonna, you know, and there may be a point where we need to just break off entirely from Candlekeep Mysteries and, you know, follow those stories that we're trying to tell.
That's interesting.
Because that basically happened with Chaos Agents and Dragon Device Pirate Penguins.
Well, yeah. We did finish that module, but
You did.
there was, you know, we could have just finished the module and then we're done. But there was so much that wasn't even discovered or even touched on that was worth seeing. Like I want somebody to go and clip that whole Laura and James conversation at the bar and just point out that James is playing an 8-year-old boy in the words that he is using in his
Well, and I love
practice questioning.
I loved when James went from like, "Hey, I'm Wuya," to "Here's what I'm going to do."
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there was a very, you know,
For
Dave?
all of the like tensions of this episode in the way that we approach things, this was also a very revealing episode because I think in a lot of ways we saw a different angle of every character we have. We saw Sabachthani do the more serious version of her fast tongue. We saw Odila being very focused in on like, how does this work and how does this benefit? We saw Wuya not just being sort of word vomit, but having a very deliberate intention. We saw Lester really like using his deception for this specific purpose. We saw Dewey really taking that initiative of like, you know what? I'm just going to get done what needs to be done. Like, it was a different angle for everybody. And I think that's eventually what's going to bring the party together, is when we all kind of realize, oh, we're all here for different reasons than what we're presenting. And we can all help each other. Or just kill each other for the bonus hit points. Either way, apparently.
look, if I do it to a familiar,
They do technically count as creatures, but it would have to be hostile.
yeah, well, have your stupid fox attack me.
Well, here's the question. Are you going to pay me the 10 golden incense every time you do that?
Sure. How much incense you want?
And an hour and 10 minutes. while we
You can
wait?
have this discussion with Mother. This is between you and her about your allowance. Not getting involved.
Oh my goodness.
Well,
Okay.
on that note, we should probably wrap it up for the evening because I'm starting to get bleary. So
Yes.
thank you all so much for joining us for this. Definitely like keep an eye on this space, because one of the things that we're going to have to talk about eventually is an overarching story, because right now we're in the party formation stage.
Mhm.
So we'll see what happens. I have some ideas, but you know
You know what brings
plan
people together?
no plan
Sorry.
survives first contact.
Bounty
Sorry,
hunters.
Caroline.
That's what
I
brings
just
me.
wanted to
Mac
jump
and
in.
cheese.
What brings people together is a road trip.
Did I hear a road
True.
trip? Because yo, me and Dewey road trip.
Thank you so much for joining us. Catch
I
us
want
next
no
week.
part of this.
We might actually be going on a road trip next week. We'll find out. Bye, everyone.
Made me gag doing that. Ugh.